Hello, and welcome back to my conversation. I'm Michaela, and this is Lactation Station. I was consulting with a lady a couple of days ago, and she said to me, I wish there was an outline or guide for the stages of inducing. So that's what I'm going to try and give you today. I can't tell you exactly how your body's going to react since everybody is different, but I can give you the basics of what should be happening at various stages through your inducing journey. And as we progress through here, you'll hear that some of these stages, most of these stages, are a lot like pregnancy. But if you've never been pregnant and you're trying to induce, that doesn't help. So, kind of go through some of those basics. I'll also share with you my personal stages and how and what worked for me or what happened and didn't happen, all the different things that my body went through. I'd also like to talk about a little later is milk banks and donating milk. I was really excited. One of the things that I wanted to do when I started inducing was donate my surplus milk. Just be able to give something back and help out moms with babies in needs or moms in needs, whatever the case may be. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. As you start your inducing journey, however you stimulate your breasts, it will create a surge in hormones and a change in breast structure. Even though we were born with milk ducts, they must be prepared for lactation. The breasts go through some amazing changes in preparation for lactation, which is one of the reasons why it may take you a little bit of time to produce. Remember, it takes a mother's body 9 months to be ready for lactation. It may not take you that long, but it is a process, so don't get discouraged. Breast growth during inducing may be rapid during the early weeks, or size may increase gradually. One of the first signs you may notice is your breasts are starting to swell, there's soreness or tenderness, maybe they're heavy or they feel heavy or they have a feeling of fullness. You may also start to notice the veins on your breast become bluer and more visible. Your breasts may continue to grow in size, they may continue to feel tender and swollen. These symptoms can often dissipate within the first few weeks of your body adjusting to the influx of hormones. You may feel an ache all the way up to your armpit area. This area of the breast tissue is called the tail of Spence, which is an extension of the upper lateral quadrant of the breast, and it's the very tail end of the breast tissue. I've read case studies about women that get engorged up in that area, so just be mindful. If it hurts up there, that's not something that's wrong per se, that it's natural and normal because you do have breast tissue up that high. You may also start to see changes to your nipples. They should start getting larger and possibly more sensitive. You may also notice that your areola is starting to darken a little bit. Your Montgomery glands will become more pronounced and look like little dots or bumps on the areola. It's theorized that your areola darkens to make it easier for the baby to find. The Montgomery glands also secrete a fluid that has a distinct smell to it. It's been compared to amniotic fluid, so that also helps the baby to be able to find the areola and nipple to start suckling. So, you'll notice your Montgomery glands becoming more pronounced. Even though we're inducing, and there isn't a baby looking to feed, those changes will still happen. And as you progress, your breasts will continue feeling heavy or full as your ducts mature, or, if you've had children before, then I like to say they're waking up from a dormant state. And, it just depends on your circumstances. Your bra might be getting tight at this point. You may only go up 1 cup size, or you may go up several cup sizes. It just depends on how your body reacts. A good fitting bra is crucial at this part, and you don't want something tight or binding, inhibiting your progress. Because I didn't know, not that I didn't know, I didn't want to keep buying bras, so I bought a couple of sports bras and a couple of nursing bras, which I found that works best for me. Now at this point, I either wear no bra or a nursing tank, unless I am going out to an important meeting or dinner or something like that, then I'll wear a regular bra. But Usually it's no bra or a nursing tank. I had an issue with underwire bras. They became extremely uncomfortable for me and they would like dig in. I don't remember where I read it, but I did read an article that said to be careful with underwire bras because they can dig into your newly developing milk ducts, and that can be uncomfortable. As you progress, your breasts will become heavier, your areolas will become darker, your nipples should get larger and more pronounced. Your breasts will start to feel like denser without you feeling it. I don't know how to explain that other than like bread dough. If you've ever held raw bread dough in your hand and it just kind of feels heavy and dense, that's kind of like what your breasts will start to feel like. They'll also start to change shape a little bit. Your nipple and areola will, like I said, will continue to darken. As your skin stretches to accommodate your growing breasts, you may experience itching or dryness. And you want to be really careful with what you put on your breasts, especially on the areola and nipple area. Usually it's suggested that you just clean with soap, a good soap, and make sure you rinse off well. But if you are experiencing itching or dryness or uncomfortability, just try using an all-natural cream or something that's organic so it doesn't create any problems for you later. Now, it is possible at this point that you might start leaking. Don't be concerned if you don't. Not everyone does. Let me interject here really quickly while I actually have it on my brain while I'm thinking about it. If you're inducing, you will not produce colostrum unless you just had a baby. Women who induce do not produce colostrum. If you had children before and you decided to induce, you may have like a thick discharge at first, or it may be yellowish and it might look like colostrum, but in all probability, it's probably leftover milk in the ducts just making their way out. And if you've never had children, then you probably won't experience this at all. You'll probably just see a clear liquid at first. Okay, so back to breasts. As your breasts are growing and changing, these changes don't indicate what your milk supply will be like or your ability to nurse a partner. Big breasts do not indicate a large supply of milk, just as small breasts don't indicate a small supply. You have no way of knowing based on how big your breasts got or how small they stayed on what your supply is going to look like. As you progress, your breasts will remain larger than they were and will continue to stay that way until, about 6 to 9 months in. If you decide to, induce for that long, then you might see that your breasts, the size goes down slightly. The amount of milk that you produce won't change. You may experience engorgement at some point, which just means that your breasts will be overly full of milk. Engorgement usually lasts the first few weeks, if it happens at all, and that's just as your supply levels out. Once that happens, then engorgement should stop. Suckling or pumping will help reduce engorgement. I guess I should say that, but I feel like it's just a given. If your breasts are full and you're uncomfortable, then get the milk out so that you won't be uncomfortable anymore. If you decide to stop inducing, your breasts may return to their original size and shape, or they may stay large, or they may lose some of their elasticity. Your nipples may or may not go back to their original size and shape, but your areola and nipples will become lighter in color over time after you stop. While hormones prepare your breast for lactation, the milk ducts are maturing and being stretched as they prepare to fill with milk. All this causes your breasts to be more sensitive, particularly your nipples, and this may cause discomfort as well as itchiness. And I know I mentioned that earlier, I had a real issue with itchiness, so I just want you to know if you do get itchy, especially in the nipple or areola, it's not unusual. And once you get your ducts working and everything is moving as it should be, you will start to get drops of clear liquid or pre-milk. I know I said earlier that colostrum and the pre-milk are, not the same, that only pregnant women produce colostrum. But the induced pre-milk or clear liquid drops that you get, is the equivalent to pregnancy colostrum in that it's not the same, but it's an indicator that milk is on the way. On average, once you get the clear drops, it should only be a week or two until you start seeing drops that are, they'll start getting, a little bit wider and a little bit wider until they actually look like milk. I say average because I've talked to women who have had clear drops, then milky drops in as little as 5 days. And I've also talked to some ladies that get clear drops and then it just kind of seems to stop, and it's a month or two before they see anything resembling milk. So it's all in how your body reacts. Okay, so to recap, stimulating creates hormonal changes that helps get your breast ready for lactation. Your breast will become heavier and denser during this time, and your nipple and areola will also start to darken. The changes your breasts go through don't predict the type of milk production you will have. Some women's breasts go back to their original size and shape after inducing, and others remain changed, staying larger or more lax. If you have had kids, like I said earlier, then you realize that these changes sound familiar because they are quite identical to the changes you experienced during pregnancy. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about how things went for me. Because when I first did this, I had read some articles online and talked to a lactation consultant about the possibility of doing this, but I had no guidance. I had no one to tell me this is what you should feel and this is what you shouldn't feel. And honestly, it had been so long since I'd been pregnant, I don't remember what it was like. So I started inducing. I originally started with just massage, and then I got a TENS unit. And once I got the TENS unit, I noticed the difference in my breasts. Not only were they starting to get a little bigger, when I take my bra off, they were really heavy. So after the TENS unit, because I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I got a manual pump. And I used to get up in the middle of the night long enough to pump or turn on my TENS unit. As I progressed through, at first I freaked out because my areola got darker. My nipples have never been big, but they were, after I would pump, they were, a lot bigger than they had been. So then that was another sign for me. I remember one night I was sleeping and I woke up in the middle of the night. Oh my gosh, my nipples itched so bad, like, I don't know, like a pile of ants was on them. And I was just scratching. And I had to be careful that I didn't, scratch so bad that I created a sore or, anything like that. But it was just excruciating, and I freaked out. And I got up, and I have an organic breast cream that I put on, and that helped for, the moment. It definitely made it feel better. So then after that, I would use my TENS unit during the day, the manual pump at night. Then I read about the hand expressing, the Marmot technique. So I learned how to do that. And at first when I did it, I didn't realize that you don't move your thumb, that you don't, your fingers stay in one spot and you move the skin. Did that, and I was so anxious to see something happen that I ended up with sores on my areola from the friction of my fingers. So I realized that I wasn't doing that right. Once I figured out how to do it right, as I did it, more and more, my breasts just felt so heavy and so full. And when I'd use the pump, I felt like I was having letdown, but nothing was coming out. So that's another key sign. If you feel like, milk is letting down, then you're on the right path. And then after that, I realized that my bras were too tight. So I didn't know how much bigger I was going to get. I started out as a 36C, and now I'm a 40D. So that's the progress that I've made. I didn't know, where I was going to go with size. So I bought a couple sports bras and a couple of nursing bras, and I figured that those two things would, work well for me in the meantime till my size leveled out. So one day I was in the bathroom and I was doing the Marmot technique, and I noticed, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like a little white stringy thing was stuck to my nipple. And so I kept doing the Marmot technique, and it it looked like my nipples were making string cheese. And so I, kept doing it and wiped it off. What I have since found out is that was old milk that was left in the ducts, which is funny because it's like 30-year-old milk. Once I got that out, because it was almost like a plug, once I got that out, then I started seeing drops right away. So that was really exciting. That inspired me to want to keep going, once you see those clear drops. So I continued with the TENS unit and the pumping and the Marmot expression. And for me, I got better results with the Marmot technique and doing the hand expressing than I did or ever have with the pump. I bought a Spectra 2, and I started using that whenever I had to go somewhere or do something. I used my TENS unit and I took that with me. It was about a week or two later, I was in the shower. I just felt so heavy, and my breasts they felt like they were weighing me down. I was just so heavy and full. My nipples started to hurt really bad. So I finished up my shower. I was doing hand expressing like I always do in front of the bathroom mirror. Lo and behold, I sprayed on the mirror one little tiny stream of milk, but it was milky and it was a stream, and I was so excited. So all in all, it took me from when I started to that first stream of milk about 4 months. But that's no way an indicator for anybody else. I think personally that I just got lucky. I've heard other ladies say that it's taken them much longer, and I've had, ladies tell me that it happened really quick. Like I said before, it all just depends on how your body reacts. But I definitely had the heavy fullness. I did go up in breast size. My nipples itched so bad, and I've since learned, because I get like a tingly feeling in my nipple when I need to express. It's never been that really bad itchiness again. But I have learned that when I feel that in my nipple, that it's time for me to either pump or express or put a mouth there, because that's my body's way of telling me that it's ready. So that's a little bit of how the journey worked for me. And everybody's going to be different, so hopefully some of these things will help you be able to identify whether you're on the right track or you need to make adjustments. And I will also add, when I first met my partner, which was right after I started inducing, it was probably about 6 months in, and I was producing milk, not a lot, but I was producing some. He could empty my breasts in 15 minutes for each side, so a total of 30 minutes. Here we are a year and a half later, and it takes him 20 to 30 minutes to empty. Usually it's longer on the right side because my right side produces more. I guess you didn't necessarily need to know that. It averages about 20 to 30 minutes on each side. So that's quite a bit of progress. So just stick to your schedule, continue your inducing, look for some of these key signs, and you will get to where you want to be. So let's talk a little bit about milk bank donating. Once you start producing milk, you may wonder what to do with all the excess milk. Well, this was something that I had thought about quite often. I decided that I would donate my milk to a milk bank. I thought that was a great idea. Let me tell you what I found out. But first, let's talk a little bit about just milk banks and milk donation in general. Milk banks recruit and screen mothers who have excess milk. Also, sometimes bereaved mothers who have lost their babies or surrogate mothers may decide to donate. So that group of people is encouraged to donate as well. The banks collect, process, screen, store, and distribute donated milk to specific individuals who have a prescription for human milk. The World Health Organization, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Canadian Pediatric Society all mention donor milk as an alternative if mother's milk isn't available. For sick or premature infants, not giving them human milk can present a risk. In some neonatal ICUs, the use of donor milk in the absence of mother's milk is a standard of care. Human milk has been shown to result in decreased morbidities and mortalities when compared with formula, especially for ill or high-risk infants. Healthcare providers, parents, and even insurers are finding this a compelling argument to support the investment necessary to make donor milk available to every needy infant. Documented uses for donated breast milk are as follows. In infants who are otherwise healthy but not thriving on a milk substitute, to decrease feeding intolerance, infants with short gut syndrome or other diseases, post-surgery including children undergoing cardiac surgery, in children with kidney problems or congenital malformations such as cleft palate, and as part of the treatment for severe gastrointestinal infections. The U.S. and Canada also use donor milk for infants with no medical needs, such as adopted babies, babies of mothers who have had mastectomies, or require meds that are not compatible with breastfeeding. However, when there is no identifiable medical need, the processing fee is not covered by insurance or the healthcare system, so families are responsible for the expense. Also, milk will only be dispersed for those babies when there is sufficient milk available to provide for recipients with a medical need first. Okay, so that's a little bit about what a milk bank does. Now, why do we have them? Let's look at a little bit of history of the milk banks. In the 1900s, women primarily breastfed their babies. When this was unavailable or had insufficient milk, families used wet nurses or sought donated milk from family and friends. Women who wet nursed or donated were verbally screened. In addition, the health of their children were observed. The technical advances that made artificial feeding products possible also made milk banking possible. In 1909, the first milk bank was established in Vienna, Austria. In 1910, 2 more milk banks were opened, one in Boston and one in Germany. By the 1940s, the American Academy of Pediatrics had developed guidelines for donor milk banking. And by the 1980s, there were about 30 milk banks and 23 facilities in Canada. In 1985, the Human Milk Banking Association of North America was founded with the goal of standardizing donor milk banking operations. More than 10 years ago, it was estimated that to serve the NICU in the United States, 8 million ounces of breast milk was needed. Let me say that again, 8 million ounces. That was 10 years ago. Although not all NICUs and maternity units currently offer breast milk, so clearly there is still a need for more donors. Today, donor milk banking is expanding globally. More than 500 nonprofit milk banks operate around the world. As with donor tissue, available use of donor milk requires a prescribing healthcare provider's order. Nonprofit donor milk banks provide milk almost exclusively for patients with a medical need. The expense of screening donors, processing and dispensing the milk, and record keeping requires milk banks to charge for their services. Therefore, costs can be a barrier, especially for people that there's not necessarily a medical need. If the mother has insufficient milk supply or is unable to produce milk, if her baby is healthy and thriving, then that's a cost that the family has to bear. Even though we all know that breast milk is what's best for the baby. I mean, the American Association of Pediatrics, every industry, or not industry, I don't know the word I'm looking for, every company around the world will validate that breast milk is best for babies, in their first year. But if you don't have a medical need, then milk banks usually won't help you. The processing fee in 2018 amounts to about $5 to $6 per ounce, plus the expensive shipping if needed. There is a 2-page list of the requirements to become a milk donor, most of which, it does make sense. In the middle of the list, there's a statement that says, generally healthy lactating women who meet requirements for blood donation and are not taking contraindicated medications are acceptable donors. Let me tell you how not true that is. Detailed donor screening involves verbal, written, and serum screening. So to be eligible to donate, a few of the requirements are: you have to be in good health, willing to take a blood test, not regularly taking medications except for ibuprofen, Tylenol, the mini pill, Zyrtec, Claritin, or prenatal vitamins. You must also be willing to donate 100 ounces of milk or 200 if you're shipping. You must be pumping for a baby under the age of 1. You must have a written letter from a physician stating that you and your baby are in good health. You must be less than 18 months postpartum, consume less than 450 milligrams of caffeine per day, which roughly estimates to about 2 or 3 cups of regular coffee. And a couple of things that will disqualify you: medications, prescriptions, OTCs, herbals, and megadoses of vitamins. Some of the herbals are mother's milk tea, fenugreek, and any lactation support products containing fenugreek or other herbs. All milk is pasteurized, thereby destroying both viruses and bacteria. And then milk from 2 to 4 donors is pooled carefully and mixed to ensure even distribution of all the milk components. Okay, so here is my issue. It's a known fact that milk donations are needed, almost as urgently as blood donations are needed. When I first got the idea of donating milk, I was really excited. This was something that I really wanted to do, until I realized that my age was a barrier and I haven't had a baby in 30 years. But that doesn't make my milk any less important than someone that just had a baby. But I am disqualified from donating to milk banks because of that. They have all these specific requirements, which, like I said, most of them I understand. And I would be perfectly willing to have a verbal screening and do a blood test and all that other stuff, except the fact that I'm not less than 18 months postpartum. So that completely disqualifies me. So it was really frustrating to realize that I have, all this surplus milk and there's nothing I can do with it. It just literally goes to waste. Why, somewhere in my city, there's a baby in NICU that could really use it. What are the alternatives? Well, there's a couple of different websites online, like one of them I think is called Only the Breast, where you can donate there. What I did personally is I found a local Facebook page, a group, and I made contact with one of the girls in that group. And so once a month I meet up with her and I just take her the milk that I have, and it gets dispersed to mothers in need. Now, it's not, the come in and save the day for the baby in the NICU, but it still, it helps older babies that maybe their mother isn't producing as much, or she has issues, whatever the case may be. There was one time I know there was a lady that came into town, had a bunch of excess milk that she had pumped and stored while she was here, but she didn't want to, take it with her traveling back to wherever she was from. So she donated that milk, and it got dispersed through the group's moms. And it makes me feel really good that I am out there helping, trying to do my part to not waste the surplus milk that I have. But the stringent restrictions from the milk banks is really frustrating. And, I just wish that there was some way I could talk to somebody or, find out how to change that, because I think it needs to be changed. I think these rules have been set in place since 1985, and I don't think that the people who run these organizations realize that there's a whole community of women that induce, that have surplus milk. You know, I have a partner and we suckle on a regular basis, but he's not always here or he's not always available, so I have to pump. If I didn't have the outlet on Facebook, I'd have 8 ounces of milk going down the drain every day. And to me, that seems criminal when there could be a baby somewhere that could use it. You know, and they pasteurize and process all the donor milk to get out any possible disease or infection or anything like that. So then they pool, you know, all these different donor milks together. That doesn't make person A's milk any different than mine. Once it's pasteurized and processed, it all becomes the same thing. Just like cow's milk. You know, when all the cows are milked, then all the milk is pooled and it's processed, and then it's all just milk. You know, if that was something that you want to do, or it is something that you want to do, I highly suggest you look in your area, maybe for a Facebook group of moms. If they don't want to, you know, take your milk, or if that's not what they do, maybe they can point you in the direction of a group that will help you. And the other alternative, like I said, is a website called Only the Breast. I don't really know much about it, but I know I've heard a couple of the ladies in my lactation group talk about it as an alternative. There are a couple of things that you can do, but it's still frustrating that, you know, we can't be part of this bigger picture of helping these babies in the NICU, or, you know, moms that have mastectomies that can't nurse their babies. You know, all these other groups of people that we could be helping and we can't. Okay, so I've ranted, you know, long enough on that particular subject. So let me announce the winner of this week's giveaway. The email address is Carrico. I don't know if I'm saying that right. KCARRICO _75kc@gmail.com. So that's our winner for this week. Let me spell it again. KCARRICO _75kc@gmail.com. So that's our lucky winner. I had a great time talking with you today, and I look forward to our next conversation. Have a great night.